So this is the robot we brought to Worlds 2023 and 2024, which was full volume. And this robot does have a clutch on it, as well as a really fast elevator mechanism and a solid intake. So we're going to start with the intake. So this is our intake since we have a PTO. So 40 tooth gear hooked up to this small 12 tooth gear right here. And because we have well, it's actually not a PTO because there are no pneumatics on it. It's technically a clutch. We have these 4 motors just driving the intake, which it can swap between intake and the elevator. It's just this 48 tooth gear. It's pretty simple driving this 12 tooth gear, and we have a chain with ultra low friction. We put a lot of spacers here, and you run it up to this gear, and this gear really just this is what we like call an anti-gravity intake. As the gear lifts up, it helps us like lift the intake up, which makes it lighter for us to go into the supply zone bar and intake purple cubes better, and this intake can cluster around. So you might notice these on the front of the intake, we have these 2 bands right here and this band right here. So one of the biggest issues was since we're using a clutch mechanism, it's a 2-way PTO clutch, so it's not permanently hooked up to the intake. That means we can't really outtake. So if we get jammed, it's quite an issue. But during Worlds, we never got. We did have one minor jam, but it was really small, and we just cleared it in like a few seconds. So the large issue we had was sometimes when the cube was intake, it would get stuck like this, and the bands would lock together, and the intake would lock. And so by having these bands here, it would just prevent that from happening. And for the bottom of the intake, we have these 2 lamps here. We're still in the hotel, and we only have a green block right now, so we can't really show you with it running. But here's we have this ramp that really just helps ease the cubes up, and this small band right here that helps, especially the green cubes, go up. These 2 plates right here, as well as these 2 bands, we double layer this band, and we have a band that goes all the way down right here. This is what ensures the cube, even if it goes in here, it's fine, as another cube will just shove it up. Because if it gets blocked here, we can't really phase with the mechanism. And so, as for our intake, we already said we used a 4-1, and it's our lowest roller has a lot more torque on it, as it has to grapple with all the blocks, especially in the supply zone. And the rest of it's 4-1, but this is this one I think it's 3-1. It has slightly more torque. And so moving on to the essentially the funnel for the intake. We used to have one of these on this side, but it fell off because we just came back from Worlds. And so what this does is our supply zone clear is actually really good. We can get like 30 seconds pretty consistently. We can get 25, 22. The main issue, what we found with our robot, is that our phase wasn't actually deep enough. So we would have an issue with the last block in the corner, and that would usually take a few seconds. So without that, our clear would easily be like 25 seconds. But that last block got us a lot at Worlds. We tried to improve on this part by just essentially changing this from a flat to a plastic sheet and making it longer. It helped our clear for a finals match. We had like a 22-second clear with a really bad purple layout. There was a purple in the back corner, and we still managed to clear in 22 seconds, which is pretty nice. So I think this modification was pretty good that we made during Worlds. And so as for this part, we just basically have a flat right here, and we both block it, going to our intake more smoothly. And one thing we found really helpful with getting over the bar into the supply zone, because like we said, we can phase into the bar and take the blocks of the supply zone. We have these chains wrapped around the bottom roller, as well as a rubber band on it. So essentially what this does is when the roller goes over, it assists the sled and allows just the intake to go over a lot easier. And moving on to the sled, this sled has this back part right here, so when we exit the supply zone, it makes it a lot easier for us to exit the supply zone, and we don't need to stop the intake. As for the bar phase, it's pretty simple and it's pretty standard, but generally all we have to do is go onto this part, and the intake will pretty much take it from there.